Welcome to Salvage, a podcast for conversations with artists about the repurposed materials they use in their art practice. Please enjoy my conversation with Bryan Northup. Bryan's work responds to human interactions with a uniquely modern material, plastic. Using collected single-use plastic and found objects from the waste stream as art medium, he attempts to blur the lines between appetizing consumables, biological dissection, and everyday waste, to explore layers of meaning in an age where toxic materials of our own creation have saturated our environment and penetrated our species, both biologically and culturally, to the cellular level. Bryan reacts to modern consumer-saturated society and processes his own environmental climate despair by drawing attention to the role plastic production and dependence plays in the global climate crisis. Bryan's sculpture and wall relief works depict abstracted glimpses of microscopic cell interactions, molecular level contamination, a cross-section of interconnectedness in an attempt to imagine how this human-made material interacts with the living systems at the deepest level. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. I'm very excited. I've been following you online on Instagram. I'm not sure for how long, but it feels like a while.
Yeah.
But I'm glad
Okay.
to have finally met you in person
Yes.
2 weeks ago now.
I know it was just 2 weeks ago. It seems like longer, but yeah, thank you for inviting me. This is great to talk again.
Yeah.
We didn't get much time in when we were milling about in the exhibit, but yeah, I was glad we got this chance.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming at the exhibition, right? There, we're talking about the plastic culture exhibition for those listening, which will be until December 7th, I think, right?
Up through
December
December
7th,
7th, yeah,
24, 19,
at SVA
2024.
Gallery.
Yeah. It was a very well-attended opening, so it was a little overwhelming, but I'm glad that you introduced yourself to me and I was able to put the face to the art, so to speak.
Likewise, yes, I
Yeah.
know. You're
Yeah.
doing great things. I just didn't realize the depth of all the, education programming you do, and I just
Oh,
enjoy it.
thank
So
you.
that's
Well, I didn't realize the depth of all your art that you do and everything that you have done in the past until I dove into your website earlier. Um, so could I start from the very beginning, like Julian?
sure. Let's see how
I,
far back you're going to start. I'm curious.
not too far. Did you make art when you were a kid?
Absolutely, yes. I was the kid drawing pictures while I was sitting on the church pews. I was like drawing horses and whatever I could think of.
Were you
I
drawing
actually
in the
really
Bible?
no, I went through some reams of just plain paper. I didn't ever have a sketchbook, but I was just wanting to get those, this idea in my head out on paper. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's so
very much
cool.
started drawing. And have been into all kinds of medium like painting, ceramics, glasswork.
Oh, wow. Even glasswork. Wow.
Yeah, I did that
So
for quite some time, actually.
you went to school for art,
Yes, I
and
went to,
what was your major?
it took me the longest time to figure out I wanted to go to art school, and then I
Oh,
finally did that, and then narrowing it down, I just wanted to do all the things, like I decide now I've got to major in something in art, and I ended up majoring in photography. So I
oh,
had my undergrad in photography. And as soon as I graduated, everything went digital. So I learned how to print, take, analog film, you know, photos, develop them, color prints in the dark room, and then everything kind of changed after that. So
I feel like it changed really, really fast, and I'm not a photographer.
it did, yeah. And now I had just got my iPhone on me and I take pictures all the time anyway. So it was the training and what to see, how to look at things, color wise,
Mhm.
composition is invaluable. So that was something I definitely use every day.
Yeah, no, I bet. That was a I took a photography course in high school, and that was a very long time ago, but I do remember learning to see. And I think that's one of the, as any kind of artist, whether it's photography or whatever, that learning to see is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your journey from photography to now? Did you actually start doing digital photography, or did you start doing something else?
I didn't. I kind of graduated and met a couple of artists who were doing jewelry, like high-end fashion wearable jewelry pieces. Alex and Lee is the name of the artist, and they had been making found object art for the longest time back in the 70s.
Oh.
And so I became their sort of assistant. I did photography for them for
Mhm.
their jewelry, and then just kind of became my job for a little bit to go to New York. That was the first time I went to New York and helped them with shows and things like that.
Oh, cool.
Helping make necklaces, actually, which kind of got me into jewelry and fusing glass. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
little links between each thing, but yeah, that's kind of what I did. And I think photography has remained part of that, part of what I do the whole way through, just documenting what I'm making things and photographing work for people. But
Oh,
yeah, that was I was very grateful for working with them and just learning how to what the kind of what the art world's like, what you have to do. People, you have to network and meet people and all that other side of besides creating.
right. So, okay, so I have to ask, which is the most difficult part of that art world stuff for you?
Now that I have kids, it's getting out of the house and going to openings, and like FaceTime with other artists and stuff. So, aside from being an artist, I'm the executive director of a historic art organization here in Oak Park. So I
Oh,
started this year actually. So I'm a year into being in that role, although I worked for them for a number of years
oh,
earlier,
congratulations.
2009. So yeah, I'm kind of a nonprofit executive director too.
Oh, wow. So
Helping
what's the historical organization? What do
the
they?
Oak Park Art League. It's been around since 1921,
Oh,
and
wow.
so we're 103 years old. And we do monthly exhibits and classes and just kind of a sanctuary for people who appreciate visual arts and want to make art. And so that's kind of been a whole other world that I'm living in and nurturing besides my own artwork.
Yeah. Oh, but that's
Especially,
amazing. That's very that sounds like a huge job.
it kind of is. It's the biggest little art job in Oak Park, I think. Feel like.
So
Just
I
coordinate
have
everything.
been to Chicago and I've never been to Oak Park, but I have done a commissioned home portrait of someone who lives in Oak Park. That's
Okay,
the only reason I'm like recognizing, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I remember looking at all sorts of maps and photographs of homes in Oak Park. So all of a sudden
right.
I made that connection. That's funny. Oh. So is your job kind of overseeing everyone or planning the events and coordinating or is it everything?
It's kind of everything. I mean, there is a board of directors, so I've got support from an amazing group of volunteers on the board, and but it's myself and then another staff who heads up, planning the classes because we have a studio. We're actually located in a converted carriage house, so a
Ooh.
historic building, E. E. Roberts. So it's a downstairs gallery and an upstairs, what used to be a hayloft is now the studio. So it's
Oh,
really, I love the history of it. It's just really
yeah.
exciting to be carrying that on after so long and being in this space. So we're renovating, we're, getting grants for things. And
Hmm.
I'm my sort of jam is doing the exhibits part and hanging works. I
Oh,
do
cool.
comparator work as well outside
Hmm.
of even these two things we're talking about. So planning exhibits is fun for me, and
Yeah, I
making work
bet.
is very exciting. So I'm actually putting together the calls for art for our calls for next year
Oh,
currently.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's very cool. All right, back to you,
back
or
to,
back to your
okay.
art. So you said you did photography and you did ceramics or
I
jewelry
did
and
ceramics in
ceramics?
college and high school a lot. I really
Uh-huh.
love, like, I'm an earth sign, so getting my hands in mud and, firing things to stone is really exciting for me. And I still have pieces I made, but I just, which direction do you go in? Which way are you going to dedicate your time has always been my challenge because I want to be doing it all. But I sort of serially go to a medium like glass. I was doing stained glass and fused glass for 15, 20
Oh,
years
wow.
as my medium. And that's how I kind of came to plastic just through a project, actually just a public art project kind of led me
Oh,
to glass, or I'm sorry, to plastic as a
okay.
medium.
So were you aware of the problems that single-use plastic was posed causing at that
I
time?
gotta say no, it was 2015 and I was awarded a commission to do a tree project or a tree sculpture, which here in Chicago, um, Chicago Sculpture International does partners with the park district, and they take the trees that have died in the parks and turn them over to artists to create public sculpture. So I got one of
Oh,
those
very
trees.
cool.
Yeah, it's a great project. It's still ongoing. And I was going to do it out of glass bottles, and I thought that's not really practical to be like putting glass up in a tree that's probably going to fall and break and be a huge liability. So I just switched to plastic bottles, which were seemingly everywhere. Like I
Right.
went to source that and it was like no problem.
Yeah.
And the idea was to kind of do this message in a bottle idea. And so I sourced messages from the community, from people I knew, put the call out about climate change and what that meant to them. And then I put those in the bottles and secured them to this tree. So
Oh, wow. So you were already focusing on climate change, or did you just decide to focus on climate change for this project?
I think the research I did and just learning about like Nestle and their bottled water, selling bottled water to people just got me going on this rabbit hole of, what plastic, how toxic plastic is. And
Uh-huh.
so that has been something that's, always sustained me like in this medium, just how people don't know, and I didn't know until I started working with plastic bottles,
Right.
that this is really a problem, it's damaging like creating plastic, just the manufacturing process is putting all these chemicals out into the environment that are so bad and causing global warming and all these things. So
Yeah. No, it's pretty awful. It's interesting though that that led you to all the research. Now, was that like, did you ever go back to glass after that?
I have, yeah, I've made things with glass. I continue to do that. So I was working with sort of in the vein of recycling. I was kind of switched from buying sheet glass that's made for stained glass and using bottle glass. So I would
Oh,
flatten it out in the kiln, making tiles. My backsplash in my kitchen actually is all wine bottle
oh,
tile,
cool.
and doing jewelry, doing little sculptural pieces. So yeah, I kind of invented a few little techniques and ways of working with bottle glass in the kiln. A lot of it was tableware and bowls and things like that.
Uh-huh.
So
So after the bottle tree, the plastic bottle tree, what plastic art experiments did you move forward with?
this is it's like one little exhibit can like lead you down a whole path of working. So where I work now, where I'm the executive director at the Oak Park Art League, there was a show, just a food themed show. So I decided, yeah, I want to do something with that. Couldn't figure out how to do anything with glass at the moment. So I'm like, I'm just going to roll some plastic. This was right after I'd done the tree.
Hmm.
And I did a little sushi set serving of plastic to put on the wall, served on a styrofoam plate, a dish, and the whole thing was made out of plastic. And just the like working with it, rolling it up, and then slicing it was all it took for me to like go down and use that technique to create more and more pieces in that
I
bag.
love the sushi rolls. I saw them on your website. They're hysterical and fun and scary at the same time.
Yeah, as soon as you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm hungry, and then you're like, oh, well, it's plastic, and I'm actually eating that anyway. So it's sort of the whole luring you in like an animal in the ocean would be by plastic. It's kind of a parallel idea,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
I love that. Where do you source your plastic?
I mean, it's hard to escape it. It's not hard to source plastic, really. I mean, I walk everywhere. I don't drive a car, so I'm always picking up things. I've got a bag in my backpack that I just put things in. Anything that comes through my own house that
Mhm.
is packaged, I somehow find a use for. And if I wasn't an artist, I'd be a hoarder for sure. Like I work out of my basement. I've got a pretty big room down there that's just pretty much packed with material waiting to be used or in process. But a lot of what I use is bags, the films and
Mhm.
things. Although I have collections of stuff that I don't know quite what to do with, so I put those in bags, and that becomes an installation. So like
Aha.
just the collecting of the plastic becomes its own piece. Um, and I don't know if I need to figure out what to do with it as manipulating it or anything beyond just like displaying it in a clear plastic bag. And so
Oh,
that's
that's interesting.
one way that I work with it is just collecting it and sort of archiving it, because hopefully eventually people will realize that plastic is not something we should be making anymore and using and throwing away.
Yeah, definitely
There's a
not
record of what
single-use
we did.
plastic for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I don't know. So I have no problem. And like any other person who works with plastic, you have friends who are like, here's all the plastic that's come through my house in the last 2 months, and you get a big delivery on the front doorstep, and
Yep.
hopefully they washed it and sorted it, but maybe not.
Right. Yeah. No, do you ever like source your materials from like on social media when you're working on a really large project?
I tried doing that when I was working with glass bottles because I got a commission to do some bowls for the Art Institute's gift shop back in
Oh,
2012. And I did that, and I'm like, I need this specific orange colored glass, and it was just really hard to hunt this down. And it
uh-huh.
was, I mean, I did get some success, and I made the bowls, and everything turned out fine, but um, it was challenging, and now I just have too much material that I know what to do with, so I'm not really actively seeking anything. Although that said, I do have people tagging me on Facebook going, do you want these prescription bottles? Do you want the styrofoam? And so I don't really have to ask anymore. It's sort of come
Yeah,
to me. Yeah.
that's funny. That's funny. So I saw on your website where did it go? Here we go. Here we go. The Was it the pillow project? Is that what I saw? One second. Where
Oh,
did it
small
go?
comfort. Is that the one
Oh,
you're
the soft sculpture, right?
sculpture?
If I click on your soft sculpture and
Okay.
then, yes, small comfort. I mean, are these pillows stitched from plastic?
Yeah, it's a kind of plastic fabric. It's like a lining or something that I found that was like, this is not a fiber, a plant fiber. This is plastic.
Uh-huh.
And that piece is really one that I haven't shown too much, but it's kind of more about my kids
Hmm.
because the pillows were a symbol for comfort and home, and just the trauma that had been through is what I kind of stuffed pillows with. So there were stories in there that I'm not going to go into now that
Yeah.
were hard to hear, and I'm trying to process that. And that's something else I've learned about trauma and just how that affects people for the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, kids, start out their lives
Yeah.
being traumatized by a domestic situation or abuse and physical or whatever kind it is.
Mm.
And how do you deal with that? And there's just going to be a lot of repair that needs to happen. And
Mm.
so trying to find some comfort in that. So it's not any comfort, but it's a way of me trying to make something out of it. So
No, I love that. I think it's a beautifully poignant project. So did you write the thoughts or trauma on papers and stuff it into the pillows with with things, or was it just a metaphorical thinking of things and
yeah, it was more
stuff it?
just a metaphor for me.
Okay.
And like one of them is stuffed with documents, their case file documents that are shredded,
Oh, oh,
redacted, and shredded. And so it's like all this information is gathered about these kids that kind of don't have this privacy anymore.
right.
They've been put in the system, and not everything about them is documented. That
Oh,
maybe they don't even know, but it's on paper somewhere. So
wow.
capturing that whole idea somehow on a pillow, I don't know if I did it justice, but
I
it's one
think
of those
so.
things I just had to make to kind of move beyond it.
Hmm.
As an artist, you have to like process it how you process it with
That's
art.
true. That's true. Yeah. Wow. Um,
To make more, actually, I'd like to circle back to that and
uh-huh.
continue because it was a start. I think I have 3 pillows in
Oh,
the
okay.
project, and it would be good to add to that now that I've had a little time from it and a little
Hmm.
distance and perspective.
I feel like it could be 50 pillows or 100
Oh,
pillows.
easily. Like
Yeah.
it could be a workshop project where kids make the pillows instead.
Oh, I
I
love
think
that.
that would be the way to go, I think.
Yeah,
Engage them instead of me making it and talking about them. Let
right.
them do it. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I think, well, you've got an art center to do it in.
I did. Hey, there we go.
Okay.
Check off my list. Programming done.
Oh, that would be a beautiful project. Wow. Could you tell me about your See Inside project?
Yes. So I just before the pandemic, I was so lucky to get a solo exhibit at the Surgical Science Museum of Surgical Science.
I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Yeah, it's here in Chicago. It's in a converted mansion. It's the International Museum of Surgical Science, and they have all kinds of artifacts. It's global. So there's like Korea will have a room about how they approach medicine and surgery, and then there
Oh,
will be
wow.
different uh, very contemporary. There's a residency, artist residency, and then they have a space for solo exhibition. So
Ah,
at that time, I had enough work developed in this vein of thinking about plastics inside of us, and this is before it really became known how much plastic we're ingesting and where it's
mhm,
going in the food chain. And so it was all reds and pinks and white colored pieces, and I got a chance to do some installation work that I hadn't been able to scale up to previously. And I just thought the title "See Inside," like the ocean inside of us, not
mhm.
see as in seeing, but was an apt title. And it was just a great opportunity. That was like a highlight. Still, I look back at that and I'm like, that's a highlight exhibit. Just not only for the timing of it, but that it was a cohesive body of work, and it
Mhm.
was placed in a great venue for, gosh, I think it was November to February. It was a long run. So
Wow. Well, it looks amazing. It really,
thank you.
it's mind-boggling. All right, so I'm going to ask you, let's see. So you have so many series of works, and I keep looking back on your website and going,
And
all right,
it's not all up to date, even though like my up to date sadly has been neglected this year. So just
well,
know.
we can only do so much, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I am really enjoying looking at You Can't Put It Back in the Box. Can you tell me
Yes.
about that?
So I just before I did the See Inside show, I was um, included in the South Bend Museum of Arts. They do a biennial every other year, and I was one of, I think, 12 artists included in that. So I took, for the first time, this collection of styrofoam coolers that I'd been gathering. Like I walk down the alleys here in Oak Park, and there's just people throwing out their styrofoam coolers, thinking it's going, to be recycled,
Nope.
or they don't even care, and it's going to the landfill. So I'm like, no, I'm gonna do something with these. I don't know what, and I ended up just starting to stuff in things that I created, like just little things,
Mhm.
little sketches, little sculptures out of plastic, and I started arranging them in these dioramas that sort of each one was its own little menu item, and
Mhm.
then ended up having 30, 40 of those that I just stack up against the wall, and it's sort of an immersive installation, and there it's componential, so I can take it apart and show just part of it somewhere. I've shown it a number of times at different places, and I can do just all the really gory looking, gross stuff if I want to, or I can do the more neutral, colorful, playful things. And it's something I keep adding to too. I'm like, here's another cooler I gotta like put some more stuff into.
Okay,
So,
so your studio in the basement, that must be pretty large. Those
well,
coolers take up a lot of room.
in all honesty, I've got the attic
Ah,
house too that's got a lot of finished work that's stored safely. So I couldn't have all the finished work and a space to keep creating. So
yeah.
that's a space management problem here.
Yeah, I understand.
But yeah.
All right, and then I have to ask, this is still mind-boggling to me. I don't understand this at all. NFTs?
So yeah, NFT, I think my timing is just the worst because like along with the photo thing, I did this collection in I think it was 2022. And I did a collection derived from my work where I took photos and then tiled it out and made it morph from one to the other. And this is when everybody's saying, okay, you can sell an NFT for like an obscene amount of money. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I can create these things. And it was a nice sort of side diversion into what else could this plastic be. So I think I created the first plastic collection of NFTs, the plastic art derived collection. But
I think so. I've never seen anything like it.
yeah, and it's still living up on OpenSea. So if anybody wants to go look.
So in order to sell an NFT, you have to upload it to a specific, some kind of very special platform?
Yeah, there are gallery sites that specialize in NFT work, and if you're on Instagram long enough, somebody's probably gonna go, "Hey, your work would be great as an NFT," and they want to like have some sort of percentage of sales and
Yeah,
get.
I delete all those.
Yeah, and I sort of did it before I got approached too many times by that and did it myself.
Oh,
And I honestly I didn't ever sell any of them. It was a good exercise for me and like exploring really, and I got some cool digital files as a result, but really that's as far as it kind of went because then there was the whole crash that happened. The cryptocurrency markets
right.
took a turn, and I think right after I launched it, actually, it was sort of like an Earth Day launch, and then the next month it was not a thing. So
Well, I wonder if now you can do like some kind of an immersive installation with all these NFTs, like moving on the walls around something that is stationary or something like that.
oh, that's a great idea. I
Yeah,
like
don't let them go to waste.
projections. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to be vintage when they come back. That'll just be how I spin it.
Oh, all right. So now I want to ask you some technical questions. Maybe you'll
Yeah,
share a couple
sure.
of secrets. So your sushi roll technique, how do you
Yeah.
do it?
So that is sort of a one that I'm going to claim that I originated, and it's really just I love thinking about this as a geological process. So like you're taking many layers of bags and even little bits like the tear off ends of bags, all the stuff that is going to be microplastics if it gets thrown away, layering it up and rolling it up pretty much the same as a sushi roll is made. So the technique is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about what's going to be in the middle is at one end, and then you roll it, and that other end is going to be the outside of the roll. But I'm
Hmm.
always surprised about, by the time I get to slicing it up, what's inside and how it's arranged and all that, because you are applying pressure. And then once I slice it, I do heat seal it at the end with an iron. So there's
So
a way.
so you roll it up like a sausage, like a long sausage, like I
Mhm.
don't know, 20 inches or something, however the big the bag is, or something like that.
Yeah, sometimes I want a lot of little pieces, so I'll just make a longer roll, and
Uh-huh.
sometimes I just want two bigger round slices.
Uh-huh.
So one that's shorter and I don't have to do so much cutting. So
And
it's
what do you
really kind of
slice
random.
it up with?
I have a couple of chef knives that I keep sharp in my studio, and I just really, it's all by hand, really. Yeah.
Wow.
And I've even sourced those from like estate sales. So I'm just trying to recycle everything. And
Huh.
yeah, but I
All
do
right.
have
Do
to
you
sharpen it.
sear them on a griddle?
No, I don't do that. So I did buy a cordless iron that I had to buy because I did a piece at Art Prize in Grand Rapids, and they let me
Oh.
finish the piece in place. So I brought sort of a partially done work, which was quite large, and they let me sort of engage the public and watch people get to watch me make it. And so I had to have a cordless iron to adhere the plastic onto this big sheet that was hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, cool. Is there
So
video
yeah,
of you doing that?
I don't know. There's photos on my Instagram if you scroll back far enough.
Okay.
That was 2022, I think. End of Yeah, when Art Prize happened. So
Oh, that sounds amazing.
it
Wow.
was a lot of fun. And then I got to show the piece at the beginning of the next year. So it was
Mhm.
like immediately in a show, which is kind of
Very cool.
yeah.
So what are some of the other techniques? Okay, so ironing, rolling, sushi rolling and slicing, s- sealing with an iron, and then ironing plastics. What else do you do to plastics?
Um, Good question. I don't know. I think that's kind of the basis of it all, where I start, and then I've just been arranging, kind of almost like a flower arranging kind of idea,
Ah,
like putting things together. Once I've got some slices or rolls, it's then time to make a composition with those. And I really think of the slices as my paint strokes, my mark making devices.
I
So
love that.
like just arranging them on right now I'm working on a all white piece, so I'm making rolls out of all my clear bags, gray, white, and so it's going to be a very monochrome and colorless piece, but kind of thinking of the bleached corals and things like
Mhm.
that that's happening. And I have all these rolls, different lengths, that I'm gonna slice up and arrange on a canvas that was donated to me and make another piece. But I think beyond the sort of archiving things in clear bags, just leaving it as it is and doing little collections like that, and then making the dioramas in the styrofoam coolers, um, making fashion, making wearable stuff, which I've
Oh,
done last
really?
year. Yeah, I got an opportunity to work to be a fashion designer in July with Trash and Revolution.
Oh, yes, I've heard of it. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, they've done two shows now, and they're going to do another one this coming year. But it's sort of the Met Gala of climate crisis, is what we're hoping it will be. And so it's everyone working with plastic in different forms and different materials. And it's a very high end fashion show where models from all different backgrounds are showing these works made to bring awareness about plastic. So
That's
I don't
amazing.
know. I kind of went back to my sushi because I made a piece that was very sort of risque on the front. It was just sushi rolls covering the model's essential parts. And then on the back, it was a very long train of um, all some older work that looked like sushi on foam trays. It's just like you would go to the grocery store and find. on this like maybe 10-foot long train that she was pulling behind her.
Oh my gosh.
About food waste really was the message of that.
Yeah.
And I did one other one that was just more recently shown at the Museum of Surgical, no, the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. They did a little, with the same group, we did an intervention with their exhibit about plastics. It was really great. So yeah, that's been something new this year. Just trying to do more wearable fashion pieces.
That's so
Although I
cool.
gotta say the techniques aren't that different from what I was already working with. It's sort of just ironing, using heat to bond things. I did no stitching. I don't
Oh,
sew.
really?
So
No.
yeah, I did a stitch-free fashion piece.
I'm impressed. I have to say I've heard a little bit about Trash and Revolution. Actually, I think Cappy, I interviewed Cappy, I'm going to mess up her last name. Mayonos, do you know who that is?
Yeah, she's one of the designers. Yeah.
Yes, that's what. So when I interviewed her, I found out about this, and I used to do fashion back when I worked in mass market fashion, so nothing. But then I did a lot of costume design as well, and I always have been thinking, oh, I'm done with that part of my life. I'm done. I'm just making art for the wall. I'm making installations. I'm making all sorts of things, and I'm still sewing, but I'm done with clothing. I have to tell you, I've been thinking about this.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes, it's such a thrill to like, I mean, personally, to see your own thing walk the runway on a model. I follow fashion. I like watching the reality fashion shows.
mhm.
But then just you're reaching a whole new audience of people
Yeah.
about this problem, plastic. So I don't know if I would be a fashion designer with just, traditional fabrics and stuff. I don't think I
It probably wouldn't be
as
as
excited about that route. Like I
yeah.
would have to learn how to sew and really like do all
Well,
that
you could hire
traditional things.
people who know how to sew.
True. Yes. But yeah, you should join us in trash and be
I
exciting.
think I'd like to. I think I'd
Yeah.
like to find out what it takes to get in that, because it would be fun to try. We had I didn't participate in this. This was at the end, yes, at the end of October. There was Art in Odd Places, which
Okay.
was an exhibition along 14th Street in Manhattan. It was just the
Oh.
weekend, and it wasn't a space. It was just artists either walking with their art or doing some kind of performance or working on their art. It was kind of indescribable.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was, but it just took place along 14th Street. So if you walked on that weekend along 14th Street, you would encounter all sorts of bizarre, weird, cool, incredible, gorgeous things. Like I stopped and
Yeah.
had tea with this artist who set up a table and was showing, her family pictures and feeding everyone and enjoying tea. And it was all about community. It
Oh,
was really
yeah.
wonderful. There was another artist who was like drawing maps and things, another artist who had a tree printed on a big scarf and was hugging people with trees. And like it was really phenomenal. But
That's amazing.
and
Yeah.
I had thought about I saw the call for entry about that, and I was kind of like, I'd love to do it, but I don't have any brilliant ideas of what to do that could work like that. But after witnessing it,
And now yeah.
there's ideas swirling in my head, and I'm
If you
going,
experience it first and then you're gonna be ready. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
I don't know, but that combined with the trash and revolution is kind of where my head is going. I think it needs to be a garment, whether it's for art and odd places or for trash and revolution. I don't know.
Make something that could work for both, like it's on
Maybe.
tour, it's going to 14th Street and then it's coming to Chicago. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. The,
Yes,
the trick is finding the time to actually execute what's in my head.
right. I appreciate that for
Yeah.
sure.
So how many artworks do you usually work on at a time?
I don't know. I've got my work table has maybe a square foot of empty space that I can work on. Like a cutting board is kind of my workspace right now, and I have to clear that away. So I don't know how many things I'm seriously working on to finish. Maybe one or two right now because I've really slowed down with my other job. But right now I'm just focusing on one. I'm going back to when my youngest was a baby, and I would just work during nap time. And
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
yeah, there's something to be said about spending that much time on one piece and really just going slow and pouring in the hours. And so I get an hour right now. That's precious time, and I'm going to
Yeah.
put it in this piece. But I gotta say, I do like having things around me going in process, and I can just skip from one to the next and leave it in a place where I know I'm going to come back and be like, what did I do that for? I'm going
Yeah,
to like, change that, or it'll be easy to move forward on that one and finish it.
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I do like having that gratification of finishing pieces, but then I've got so many finished pieces too. So it's
And now what?
balance that. Yeah.
I know. Do you ever just play and experiment, not working for anything specific?
Oh yeah. I get I get a lot of what I fill those styrofoam coolers with is that. It's just like,
Oh.
oh, what if I did this and cut it this way, or like made a little something with
Mhm.
no real goal in mind at the end. Uh, that ends up being something at a cooler probably, or it's just sitting on a pile on my work table. So,
So
but
the
yeah,
things in the coolers are not attached in any way? They're just kind of stuffed in there?
some of them are, and then some I just leave loose until I decide I like that composition, or it's one that's been shown a couple of times, and I'm like, okay, let's clear that one out and reuse the cooler for this
Oh,
other thing that I've made. So it's sort of these little rooms that I can change. I sort of think of them that way. It's like,
huh.
okay, it's time to like update this one.
So it's evolving.
It's always evolving. It's
Yeah.
always, as more material is added to my studio, it gets sifted down into these different places.
And do
But
you use just the coolers themselves or the lids as well?
I use the lids too. Yeah, I use the lids. Like that first sushi piece I made was a lid to a cooler. So that was, yeah, I make little compositions on those, and then those can actually go on the wall. It's sort of a finished wall piece.
Right, you just gotta put some kind of a hanger thing on the back of it.
Right.
Yeah. Do you use actual sushi containers, the kind that you get sushi deliveries in?
I do. Yeah, because anything black can't be recycled. The light
Right.
reads it won't. So I try to save all the black plastic. And luckily, I know this artist who works with plastic, and he melts it down and has a robot, like a 3D printer robot that prints stuff out with all kinds of plastics. But he can
Oh,
use the ones that, like the blacks and the things that aren't so recyclable. Not that plastic really is recyclable,
no,
but
it's a farce.
yeah, he's doing great work.
What do you have planned for 2025? I know, it's November, but yeah.
I know. The only thing that I know I have coming up is another show that coincidentally is in Chelsea. It's the Postcards from the Edge with visual aids I've done every year for the last 7 years. So it's postcard size artworks that you send in. It's like a free submission. Just
Oh,
mail it in by the deadline, and it's in the show. And this year it's at Barry Campbell, so it's right down the street from where we're showing.
uh-huh.
And it's a benefit, so it's like a fundraiser show,
Oh, okay.
but it's anonymous. So you're in there with, who knows, other artists who are much more well known potentially, or just other people who want to support the cause. But it's fun because they do it online, and you get to see the buzz. And it's, even though you're
Oh,
not
that's
there in
fun.
person, it's really, and you can say, hey, I showed in New York, and it's
Right.
also work in a gallery in Chelsea. So I mean, that's really the only thing I have coming up.
So,
Yeah.
are you making a sushi postcard for them?
I'm not sure which one I'm going to send yet. I have a number of postcards that I've already made, but
Does it
I
have to be like a real almost like a real postcard that you'd be able to send
No, it
through the
doesn't.
mail?
It can be sculptural. They
Oh.
want it to be about 4 by 6, so it can't be
Oh,
traditional postcard size, but it could be dimensional.
oh, cool.
So that's what I've done. I actually did a wearable little kind of like a big statement necklace piece
Oh,
last year.
fun.
So it could be hung on the wall or it can be worn. That was what I did last year.
Wow, that's cool.
So yeah,
Awesome.
I have about a week to figure out what I'm going to send them because I got to mail it by the
Oh,
22nd. So
well, okay. Postcards. We'll have to see. I think I saw you post about that on Instagram, but
yes, it
yes,
just did yesterday.
I'll make sure to link to that.
I mean, this year has been amazing. I turned 50 this year and all
Happy
this stuff
birthday.
happened. Thank you. I was in two-person shows. I did the fashion show, and then I showed in New York with you at at SVA. So up to now it was like submitting, doing proposals for shows, and this year it sort of all just landed without much effort. And so I'm like, now I've got to like start that
That's
process of submitting to shows again. And I don't know, that's just part of it. You're an artist, you want
it
to get
is.
shown, so you got to
First of
keep
all,
going at it.
congratulations.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
fabulous.
Thank you.
Result of hard work because submitting to all of those shows
It's
ain't
a job.
easy.
Yeah, it's the job, but it's I don't mind getting the rejection letters either. It's just like that's you got to accept that you're gonna
Oh
get
yeah, no,
rejected.
you
And there's the submission fees, but that's just part of playing. You got to
yeah,
if you want to be
yeah.
seen, show up, just keep showing up for those.
So
So
what kind of shows do you submit to? Being I don't know. What do you call yourself a mixed media artist? What do you give yourself some kind of a title? Plastic?
uh yeah, I don't know, like eco sculptor, maybe if I was going to make something up, but I definitely want that environmental component in my work. But mostly I'm doing sculpture. I feel like sculpture and installation,
Mhm.
found object. I guess I'm comfortable with that. But
Yeah.
mixed media is sort of almost too open. I feel like it could
Yeah,
be
I agree. It could be anything.
traditional. Yeah, I want it to be definitely people know that I'm a plastic working with plastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess mixed media could be a painting with some paper layer
Right.
into it. And
Two
that's mixed
different kinds
media.
of inks or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
almost
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first started exhibiting, I was still making work mostly from fabric and some plastic and dryer sheets and things like that. And I was entering it in like art quilt exhibits. I don't know if you know this, but there's a whole art quilt
oh
movement
yeah. My
out there.
mom's a quilter, yes.
Oh, okay. So awesome. So you would know about it. So that's what I was entering it in. And at that time, everybody was kind of like, well, you should be entering fine art shows because this is fine
Mm,
art.
right.
Yes, but fine art, they're all like, no, we're painters and photographers and different, paint media and things like that. So how do you fit in? But I think
You
things
just
are a little bit easier now as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, and quilting is definitely its own medium and genre, I feel like in fine art world. So that's absolutely
Yeah. No,
really
fiber arts have exploded these days. It's really very
yes.
gratifying to see.
And I feel like plastic almost is a fiber. Like if you were to like it doesn't really fall into it could be a paint, it could be a fiber, it could be a modeling material like clay. So it sort of rides all those lines between.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's up to the whoever's ultimately deciding on the other end of the submission process whether it fits or not. I guess you just submit and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if this happens to you, but a lot of times when I display my work, whether it's at some exhibition or on my own, or I used to do art shows, um, people look at it and I get questions like, what is that? Is that encaustic? What are you doing? Like, what is happening here? People don't, it takes a while for people to see on their own, or sometimes they can't. And then when I tell them what it is, they'll be like, oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Does it happen to you?
Yes, once people get past the "oh, it's sushi, ha ha ha," kind of laughing about the fact that it looks like food, and they're like, oh, it's, if it is that technique that they're looking at. But yeah, it's mystifying to most people, which is so, I guess, empowering, because you're bringing attention to this material that otherwise is like designed to be thrown away. So it's, I think in a fine art gallery setting, it's really has a place. It needs to have a place because
Yeah.
it's so prevalent outside of the art world. It needs to somehow be reflected inside the art world too. So I love that there's, oh, just people's reaction to your
Yes.
work and discovering that it's not a traditional art medium, it's plastic. It's the
Yeah. I love
plastic thing.
surprising people.
Yeah, I think that somehow that sticks with them more. And then,
Hmm.
oh, it's, acrylic paint or whatever. This is like a material that was something else, and there's a transformation that happened for it to be presented in this way. I really
Yeah.
like that transformation
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. I have to say the transformation is what is exciting to me when I'm creating.
Yeah.
I want to transform it enough for you to not be able to tell what it is at first glance.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been tempted to leave more of the barcodes and logos and all that stuff in it so people get it right away. And
Hmm.
in some pieces, I guess that is relevant, but I want it to be mysterious enough where people want to spend time with it and look at it and try to
Yeah.
figure it out. And then once they're open to seeing, then what it is hits them and sticks more.
Yeah. I sort of think about barcodes and little bits of verbiage that are seen as like little hints here and there. Like I don't
Yeah.
mind them being in a few spots, but you have to
Yeah.
actually look to find them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
On the other hand, I have to say I really appreciate artists who use plastic in their art, but they don't transform it in any way. And they
yes,
still manage to make it really beautiful and disturbing and breathtaking even.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's just so many ways to work with plastic because there's so many types of plastic and
Yes.
types of plastic artists now. So it's really become its own thing. I love that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. This has
Oh
been
yeah, it's
so fun to talk to you.
absolutely great. It's a privilege to be on your podcast and speak with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We just keep putting it out there. That's what I'm doing.
Yes.
I love talking about it and making sure people know more about it.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that too. That's really important. Like getting it in front of people in a different way besides just on the walls. So love the
Yep.
podcast. Yeah.
Well, thank you again. This was great.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It was so interesting to hear about Bryan's art practice. If you loved this episode, I hope you catch up on the other episodes as well. And please rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. It helps to get it out there to more people, and I would really appreciate that. If you'd like to learn how I use single-use plastic in my art practice, go to ecoloop.art and take a class with me. I have many classes available for art centers and guilds to book for in-person or Zoom workshop, or you can take an online course with me at your own pace. ecoloop.art. Thanks. This podcast was created, produced, and edited by me, Natalia Korover. Theme music by R.C. Gaida. Find out more about me at artbynatalia.com. Find out about my community at repurposercollective.com and about my education initiatives at ecoloop.art. Thank you for listening. Please rate and review and share this podcast with anyone that you think might like it. Thanks so much.